I do think that we become prisoners of the moment, and very much the way that we're talking about the Chiefs right now and all of the talent they have and everything that's in front of them, I think is how people felt about the Seahawks even after the Super Bowl loss against the New England Patriots, right? Like they're all of these guys are coming back and things change. And in my mind, the Chiefs are very much at the same point that the Seahawks were after that second Super Bowl loss to a Tom Brady-led team, in which you've got an incredible collection of talent that you've put together, and you've seen that talent take the franchise to the very top and get to the brink of accomplishing something that only a handful of teams ever have. And now becomes a different part of the team building, of the how do you sustain. You have to sustain that. And I'm not sure if that's tougher to do because of the gravity that starts to act out. That, and by gravity I mean that the NFL, the schedule will become more difficult, has been more difficult. It will become tougher to keep all of these players because of the salary cap and Patrick Mahomes' extension, which he signed last offseason but hasn't fully kicked in yet. When that starts taking up a bigger proportion of your resources, other teams are going to come and your players become more desirable because you've been successful. The other part is it's hard to maintain that mentality. Well, we spent all last week talking about Cam Chancellor's essay in the Players Tribune.
Yeah.
It's hard. And I actually think that the mental part of bouncing back from a Super Bowl loss and keeping everybody on the same page, I think that's probably a bigger challenge than it is just fighting off the attrition that happens and the fact that you're drafting later and the general exodus of talent that will occur once a team gets good.
Yeah, there's that. But I think that's easier to get over than the thing that the Seahawks couldn't get over. You know, I mean, Cam Chancellor is still holding that, and that's the one, I think, benefit the Chiefs have going forward. There was not some catastrophic event that took place that half of the locker room is taking a look at and saying, what the heck just happened here? And, I mean, that's, I think, one of the more frustrating parts about the Seahawks and their inability to win that game is that after the fact, like, they let that get to them. And to be quite honest, they shouldn't have. And that's a frustrating thing to think back on, obviously, because it's so far in the past. And it's easier said than done to get over a loss like that. But for Kansas City, I think it's going to be a lot easier for them to at least get past that part of it.
The other part that Kansas City has that's different is that there's no doubt about the identity of their team. And it's not to say that there was any uncertainty about the identity of Seattle's team, because there wasn't. It was a running game with the toughness that was personified by Marshawn Lynch. It was a defense that had a swagger and a cockiness about it. And then it was a playmaking quarterback. We knew the identity of the team. The fact is that Seattle, because of the caliber of player that Russell Wilson was increasingly identified by its quarterback. And I think that created some friction. There's no Patrick Mahomes has been the signature of that franchise from the moment he started playing. Like there's been no doubt who the best thing about that franchise is. Whereas with the Seahawks, who was the best player on that Super Bowl championship team? Was it Russell Wilson? I think most people would say, well, he was an important player, and the quarterback's always the most, and he was great. And I don't know if they don't win a title without him, but was he the best player? There are an awful lot of really good players there in that defense. That defense there's no such identity discussion when it comes to the Kansas City Chiefs.
It's pathetic that that's what it became about, though, isn't it? I mean, the quarterback is becoming a good to great quarterback, and it's about credit. It's about me. It's a team game, and yeah, maybe the guy rubs people the wrong way. Maybe there's other things that we don't know about, but it's just strange. Like, you have this young quarterback who looks like he's improving. Is it really the end of the world that he is perhaps the reason going forward that the team's going to be good?
It's natural that there's going to be that little bit of antagonism, and I think it's also part of the personality that team developed, and whether that was a conscious decision to seek out guys who had that chip on their shoulder, which is something that was always talked about as an asset. Well, you know what? That chip on their shoulder, when some of those players started to feel that their place in the pecking order was threatened, that chip on their shoulder kind of became turned to, they had a chip about how the team felt about the quarterback. when you say it's pathetic, I initially react, well, come on, it's not. Yeah, it got in the way. It got in the way of continued success. And that doesn't reflect well on the people that did that.
No.
It doesn't. And it's sad. I think it's frustrating. I think probably it's mostly frustrating because an outside observer looking at it without that same sort of passion would look and say, you guys got in the way of your own success. Like, you guys, that ultimately hurts you more than it hurts anybody else, but it did hurt the team. I think that Kansas City, in that sense, has an advantage because there's no doubt about who a number one atop the totem pole is. I'll say this, they're going to need leaders to step up, though, that are able to hold people together and feel that, hey, Patrick Mahomes doesn't get blamed for anything and everybody else gets. There's going to be some. There are going to be some challenges that they have as you hear people pick through why they failed and the fact that, hey, the quarterback never gets blamed for anything and he didn't play all that well, but man, did you see he couldn't help it because the offensive line was so terrible.
That's a great point, and that's going to be on Mahomes there. Maybe Russell should have stepped in more there and said, look, this was my fault. More, and I know he did. Didn't he take the blame for it, and maybe that even rubbed people the wrong way? Again, what a strange locker room that was. For Mahomes, I think it's very key that he says, look, we lost as a team here, and that he does take away from his noble effort in a loss.